Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another program here on Legally Speaking. We're a bit late this week, but I'm still happy that you have decided to join me this evening as we discuss how to get a title deed. Now, if you tuned into our last two programs, when we talked about buying property here in the state of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and selling property, I emphasized the importance of having a title deed. But if you don't have one, how can you go about getting one? That's the purpose of today's video, and I'm happy that you are here and we can learn something together. Now, before we go into the details of how you can acquire property, I want to give you some reasons why you should consider getting a deed if you don't already have one. Now, you might have been occupying a piece of land, doing farming, or you might be living in property for a very long time. So the question can be properly asked, why should I go through the inconvenience and expense of getting a title deed? Here are 6 reasons. Number 1, peace of mind. You don't have to worry if you have a title deed evidencing that you are the owner of this property. And so, a number of cases that come before the High Court are really sometimes family disputes or land disputes where one person is trying to get another person evicted out of property, off of land, or some dispute as to who the land really belongs to. And when you have that title deed, you have peace of mind knowing that you don't have to contend with those legal battles because your title is secure. Number 2, as we previously discussed, having a title deed will enable you to sell your property. If you don't have a title deed, you would not be in the best legal position to sell that property and generate income, especially if you need it in cases of emergency. Number 3, having a title deed also allows you to go to a financial institution and use that asset as security for a loan, which is another way you can raise income for other types of investment. Number 4, you have children, you might have grandchildren. Having a title deed makes the process of succession much easier. And so if you don't have a title deed, while your children and grandchildren can simply stay in the house or move into the house, they will not have title to the property if you don't have it either. So you want to ensure that you have title so that you can pass it on to those who come after you. Number 5, the government has authority to acquire your property under the Land Acquisition Act. A recent example of this would be the Argyle International Airport. Before that airport was built, a community was there with many homes. And so in the construction of that airport, those homes had to be acquired and demolished to facilitate the construction of the airport. Now, if you have a title deed, the government has a responsibility to compensate you for the value of the property. That is not to say that if you don't have a deed, you will not be compensated. But naturally, having that deed and being able to provide proof of ownership would make that process easier. And number 6, having a title deed would also allow you, if you are a farmer, to apply for a farmer's ID. And there is a list of benefits that come with having a farmer's ID. And so those are 6 reasons why you would want to consider ensuring that you have a title deed evidencing ownership for the property that you are occupying or in possession of. Having established those things, there are some other things that I want you to bear in mind, because there are some misconceptions too about property ownership and proof of title. There are some folks who believe that if you are paying property taxes, that those receipts by themselves is proof of ownership. Paying property taxes does not make you the owner of property. While those receipts can be used as evidence in court proceedings, by themselves they do not evidence ownership. Secondly, property cannot be transferred by word of mouth. And so if you have a mother or a father and they say to you, hey, when I pass on, this house is yours, you should know that after they have passed on, those words spoken to you, even if in the presence of witnesses, is of no value to you. Those transactions must be reduced to writing as the law stipulates. So that's number 2. Number 3, having a deed in your possession does not mean that you own the property. And so a deed is really just a piece of paper. And as that piece of paper moves from hand to hand, that is not a transfer of ownership. So you have a parent and that parent dies. Running to secure the actual paper would not put you in any better position than anybody else, right? So transfer, that physical copy of the deed does not, past in it cannot transfer ownership. And so now that you know some reasons why you should consider having a deed and you have clarified some misconceptions around property transfer, let's get into how we can go about getting a deed. Number one, if you are part of the purchase and you are contributing to the acquisition of this property in any way, you should ensure from the outset that there is some agreement that your name would be included on the deed. There's almost no sense in paying a mortgage or contributing to the purchase price if your name is going to be omitted. So this is something that you want to keep in mind from the very outset. Number two, if your spouse has property, you can get your name on the deed simply by having them sign you on. And under deeds of gift, which we will discuss in another video, you don't have to pay any stamp duty, government taxes to have your name added to the deed. And so these are very simple ways. Number two, having what is called a probate done or letters of administration. So basically, you have a parent and they passed away. You have the deed for the property. Even if you are named in the will, that does not mean that you are automatically the owner of the property. You have to have that will probated, or if there is no will, you have to administer their estate and have what is called a deed of assent executed in your name. Number three, you can also pay for it. Now, one of the things that you want to keep in mind is you cannot adversely possess government land. So we'll talk about adverse possession, which we'll talk about next. But if the land belongs to the state, it's crown land, you cannot adversely possess it. You cannot apply for possessory title for government land. How can you find out if the land that you are living on or occupying is government land? You can go up to the Lands and Surveys Department and find out. You can pay for the land there if it is crown land, or it might be under the management or supervision of the Housing and Land Development Corporation or National Properties. So depending on the state agency that has direct control over that land, you can pay for that land there and get a deed through one of these state agencies. And finally, possessory title. Possessory title essentially allows you to apply to the court for the court to issue you a deed. But in order for the court to issue you that deed, you must present strong evidence to show that you have been in exclusive possession for that piece or parcel of land for a continuous and undisturbed continuous period of 12 years. And of course, before you can make that application, you have to have the land surveyed and valued, and the lawyer will take it from there. And so this last option really applies to those of you who have been living or occupying land for a period of 12 years or more. And in the same breath, I would encourage you, if you own land and you have a deed for land, you don't want to leave it unoccupied or abandoned for 12 years or more, because you stand to lose your property if someone else applies for possessory title. Even if you have a deed for the land, they can get a declaration of possessory title if they occupy your land for 12 years or more. And so this is specifically for those who live overseas or who own multiple pieces of land and leave them unattended. That's not something that you want to do. So that's been it for today. I want to thank my sponsor, Be Well Pharmacy, for sponsoring these videos, and tune in next week when we will have the last video in this land series, when we will discuss mortgages. So thank you very much for joining me today, and enjoy the rest of your evening.